Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to talk about the oil pressure gauge that's on my number one cylinder. I get a lot of questions and comments about it. I've had a few requests, so I'm finally getting around to making a video on it. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button, and check me out on Instagram at Clargo Garage. So this here is the oil pressure gauge that we're going to be talking about. It's on the number one cylinder, and this is the line that feeds the oil up to your valve train. So I'm going to show you the parts that I used and give you the part numbers for them, and then we'll fire up the bike and we'll see it in action. Alright, so first we're going to start with the parts that I used. So I've had this oil pressure gauge on the bike since 2018. I put it on a little bit before I got married, so it's been on for almost 5 years now. And I still have the old packaging from when I bought all the parts. I should probably clean stuff out. I don't really need to keep the boxes for these. So the oil pressure gauge that I end up using, the part number on it is 40-00742, and that's for that block mechanical oil filled gauge. And then I bought some new crush washers, and the part number for those, there's two different part numbers on here. So they're a 3/8 or a 10mm crush washer, and the one part number on here is 49005, but on the website that I used, their part number was 27-487, and I'm going to put the website that I used down in the comments. So if you want to go and check out the same website, I'm not sure what the prices are like or if or what the inventory is like now, because this was about 5 years ago since I bought this stuff. But those were the crush washers. I put new crush washers on when I did it. And then the banjo fitting, that would be one of these guys here. That's called a banjo fitting. I had bought two of them when I did it. I had bought a straight one, and then I had bought a 35-degree one. I wasn't sure which one I was going to like more. The straight one didn't work out very well. I didn't like how it was on the bike, so I used the 35-degree one. And the part number for that was 27-5301. And I'm going to insert the part numbers into this video. I found my old email with the old parts list that I ordered, and I'll put that in. And then the banjo bolt, I'm not sure why. I ordered two. I'm not really sure why I had ordered two, but they're a 10mm by 1.25mm double banjo bolt. So the part number for the one that I didn't use was the one part number on here is 1742-0117. And then off the website that I had got it from, that part number was 27-1620. And it was actually a couple bucks cheaper. But I can't remember why I got two. And the part number for the one that I did use, there's a part number on here, R40508. And off the website it was 19-4423, and that was for the double banjo bolt. So in total, the parts weren't too expensive. The oil pressure gauge at the time in US dollars was basically $27, and then the banjo fitting with that 35-degree kick, it was about $10. And then the double banjo bolt that I used was about $11. And then the new crush washers were about $3.50, like $3.50. So it really wasn't too expensive or anything like that. One thing I'd like to point out, even though you're getting oil pressure at the top end on your number one cylinder or your back cylinder, there is a Y in that oil line. So that doesn't always 100% guarantee that you're getting oil to your front cylinder, but it definitely tells you that your oil pump's working and that kind of stuff, and that you are getting oil to the one cylinder, which in theory, unless your line got gummed up and plugged, you should be getting oil to your front cylinder as well. In the manual, it tells you to the way that you're supposed to check to see if you're getting oil to your top end, and it's kind of messy and it's not the best, but in the manual it tells you to just loosen it off a hair while the bike's idling and the engine's warm, and there should be some oil that starts to ooze out, then you tighten it back up. So it's kind of crude. This is definitely better. I do once in a blue moon, when I think about it, check the front cylinder still and make sure that there's still oil getting to it, but I don't really do it that often just because it ends up making a bit of a mess and everything. And I'm verifying I have oil to the one cylinder, and the line's about this long to the other cylinder, so it's not too much of a big deal. So there's our part number again for the double banjo bolt. And then this is the one that I didn't use, but that's what it looks like. You can see the two lubricating holes there, so the fluid will run through that, and the bolt itself is hollow. And that would be the bolt going into here. So that's the head of that banjo bolt. And then there's the one fitting, and then there's the factory line. And that factory line comes down, and then it tees, and then it goes up to the number two cylinder. So that's what the number one cylinder, the back cylinder, would have originally looked like. And then from here it goes down and then to the oil. In the manual it shows you checking the oil on the bottom of the bike for the pressure, but this is much cleaner and I get to check it all the time. And then again, that's the box that the pressure gauge came in. And that's the pressure gauge there. It says 0 to 100 psi. If I could go back in time, I would have bought a 0 to 80 psi, because the bike typically, when it's even when it's cold around winter temperatures, best I really get is around 50 psi. So if I would have had only up to 80, it would have been a little bit bigger display for my swing. I wasn't sure when I bought the gauge what kind of pressure swing I was going to have. And then when the bike gets up to temp, I'm usually running around 20 psi to 30 psi on the freeway. And then at idle, I'm usually around 10ish psi. If you get in a lot of stop and go traffic and it's really hot, or you're into construction and you're stopped for a while and you're idling and you're moving along, you'll start to notice that you'll be running almost to no pressure. And sometimes if it's really hot out, like 40 degrees Celsius or hotter, and you're sitting there idling for a while, you'll actually lose oil pressure altogether, and you got to tap the throttle to see any movement on the needle. So it's definitely nice having this, because it lets you know that you might be in harm of damaging your engine, at least on the top end, and it probably means you're not getting very good lubrication on the bottom end either. So that's always something to keep in mind, and it's definitely nice having that gauge to let us know. And then there's the packaging that 35 degree banjo fitting came in, and that's this guy right here. You can see the kick on it, and then I went to my local parts store and I got a coupling so I could join the two together. And then the angle that I have it on, I can see it pretty good from the driver's seat. But if I would have had the straight one on, I had tried it and it came up like that. And if I remember correctly, the gauge didn't clear the engine that well, and then it was recessed in more here, so it was hard to see looking straight down. This actually is pretty visible, which is nice. And then these are those crush washers. There's the numbers on those. And when you look at it, you can see that there's a washer in between each one. So we got a washer right there, a washer between the two banjo fittings, and then a washer between that banjo fitting and the engine. And then I also carry in my saddle bag all the time the old banjo bolt that I pulled out. If for some reason this starts coming loose and I don't notice it and I lose the bolt, the gauge, everything, I always got a my old original banjo bolt with the washers on it, so I can put it back in and I can keep riding. Because if you ever lost this and you're losing oil here, you'd have to pull over, otherwise you'd destroy your valve train and it wouldn't be very good. Or if I ever lose the one on the front, I have a spare bolt, so I'll be golden if that ever happened to me. Alright, so we're going to fire the bike up now. I parked the bike and disconnected the battery. I think it was around the end of November or beginning of December. I can't remember exactly when. I haven't touched the bike really since then, other than putting it up on the jack stand and pushing it towards the wall. That's why I don't have very much room right now. So I didn't feel like moving the sidekick out of the garage and everything. I figure there's enough room. So I'm going to reconnect the battery, and then we're going to fire the bike up, and we're going to see what the oil pressure is like on a cold start. And we'll let it idle for a while and let the oil warm up, and you'll have a rough idea of what the oil pressure is like on a warmer engine. So I disconnected the battery and parked this bike around end of November, beginning of December. I haven't done anything to it other than put it up on the stand. It is Super Bowl Sunday today, so that gives you a rough idea. It's sat for roughly 2.5 months or so now. So we'll see how it starts up. I haven't charged the battery. Normally I try to give the battery a charge once or twice a month. I haven't really done much with it. So we'll see how it fires up, and we'll be able to check our oil pressure on a cold engine, and then we'll be able to see it once the engine starts warming up. So I'm going to turn the fuel back on. I usually leave the let it idle until it dies when it runs out of fuel. I just turn the fuel shutoff off. So I'm going to turn the key on. Alright, we're going to give it a little bit of choke. And now we're going to try to roll it over, and we'll watch that oil pressure gauge. Alright, so we got to see the bike fire up on a cold start. Brought it up to about 40 psi. It took a couple seconds for the oil pressure to start, just because the bike sat for so long and the oil has settled. It's almost like when you do an oil change, it takes a few seconds to get oil up to the top of the cylinder because it's all run down and there's no excess oil there. And then we seen it once it started to drop. We got down to about 10 psi. The motor's not fully up to temp, but I'm starting to get gassed out in here. So I decided to shut her down. It's pretty close to temp. The choke's fully off, but it will drop another 3 or 4 psi once it's at summer temperature and you're out riding a little bit and you stop at stoplights. It'll be hovering around that 5 to 7 psi, maybe 10 psi. One thing on the models previous to this one, I'm not sure if it's when they switched to the 1700cc or if they corrected it on some of the 1600cc, but the from a lot of the reading that I've done, the oil pump's actually a weak link and is known to fail. So that's another big plus to having this gauge on there. If you ever riding along and all of a sudden you have no oil pressure, you can shut it off. You can probably save your engine. It's a fairly big job to change the oil pump. You got to split the engine to get to it. It's right in the center. But if you can save it from failing catastrophically, that's always better. If you have any questions, please just send a comment and I'll respond as quick as I can. I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button, and check me out on Instagram at Clargo Garage. Have a great day.